1271 AD, Venice, Italy. The lagoon shimmers gold beneath a rising sun. A young man stands on a wooden pier, watching sails drift toward the horizon. The bells of San Marco toll the hour. Before him stretches a sea without end. He has heard tales of emperors who rule cities of marble and gold, of markets where silk flows like water and spices burn like fire. He feels the wind shift and realizes this is not just departure, it is rebirth. Centuries of walls and wars have divided east from west. He will cross them all. This is the story of Marco Polo, the merchant who set out for fortune and found a new world instead. Venice was the jewel of the Mediterranean, its wealth built on salt, glass, and trade. In the narrow streets of the Rialto, deals were struck in 10 languages before noon, but one family of merchants looked beyond the horizon, the Polos. Marco's father Niccolo and uncle Maffeo had already ventured east once before, reaching as far as the court of Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis. They returned with tales of an empire larger than any in Europe, and an invitation. The great Khan wanted them to bring Christian scholars and artisans to his court. By the time they came back to Venice, Marco was 17, curious, educated, and restless. When his father told him of lands beyond deserts and oceans, the boy saw not danger but destiny. In 1271 AD, the 3 Polos left Venice again. Merchants turned envoys, stepping into the longest road on earth. In an age when most men never left their birthplaces, they would cross half the world. They sailed across the Mediterranean, passed through the Levant, and followed the Silk Road through Armenia and Persia. The journey was not adventure, it was endurance. They crossed mountains where the air thinned to pain, deserts where the sun boiled water in its skins, and cities where every coin bore a different king's face. In bulk, Marco saw ancient temples shattered by Mongol conquest. In Hormuz, ships built of stitched planks and pitch set sail for India. He wrote of people who burned coal instead of wood, of paper money used like gold, things his readers would one day call impossible. When they reached the Pamirs, Marco marveled that fire does not burn so bright nor sound travel so far. He was not writing myth. He was learning how vast the world truly was. How do you measure distance when every mile teaches you something new about being human? After nearly 4 years, the Polos reached Chengdu, the summer capital of the Mongol Empire. Kublai Khan's court was a city of tents and palaces, perfumed air and burning incense. Golden dragons adorned silk banners. Persian scholars debated beside Tibetan monks. Here, every nation of the known world gathered under one ruler. When the Khan met Marco, he was struck by the Venetians' intelligence and calm. Unlike the courtiers who flattered him, Marco asked questions. He listened, he observed. Soon Kublai made him an envoy of the court, sending him to the far edges of the empire, from Burma to Yunnan, from India to the South China Sea. Marco carried imperial seals, rode beneath banners of the Khan, and saw a world no European had described before. While kings in Europe fought for crowns, here stood an empire that ruled half the earth by tolerance and trade. Kublai Khan's genius was not only conquest, it was curiosity. He surrounded himself with scholars, astronomers, engineers, and artists from every corner of Asia. He asked the Polos about Europe's kings, churches, and inventions. Marco described the glass-making of Venice, the fortresses of Christendom, the cathedrals that pierced the clouds. The Khan listened, fascinated. In return, Marco learned about porcelain, printing, gunpowder, and canals so vast they seemed to move entire cities. He marveled at Hangzhou, a city of 10,000 bridges, and Khanbalik, modern Beijing, where the emperor's palace glittered like a second sun. Everywhere he went, he wrote, observed, and remembered. Not as a conqueror, but as a witness. Was he discovering the East, or was the East discovering itself through him? For 17 years, Marco Polo served the Khan's court. He watched the Mongol postal system span continents, stations stocked with horses and messengers so swift that news traveled faster than any kingdom in Europe. He saw paper money printed in black ink, guaranteed by the emperor's seal. He tasted spices unknown in the West, rode along the Grand Canal, and wrote of black stones that burned hotter than wood, coal, the fuel of a new age. But service has a price. The longer he stayed, the less he belonged anywhere. Venice had faded into rumor. Home had become a word without a place. When he finally asked to return to the West, the Khan hesitated. He had come to see the Venetian as more than an emissary, almost as a son. But time and distance call all travelers back. The Khan relented. For Marco Polo, the journey home would be harder than the road that led him here, because the East had already become a part of him. The Polos left China in 1291 AD, escorting a Mongol princess by sea to Persia. Facing typhoons, pirates, and fever, they sailed through the South China Sea, across the Indian Ocean and around the coast of Arabia. Half their crew perished. The survivors, including the princess, reached Hormuz after 2 years. The mission was complete. From there, they crossed back through deserts and mountains once more. The same miles in reverse, now heavier with age and memory. When they reached Venice in 1295 AD, the city had changed. So had they. They had been gone 24 years. No one recognized them. Their clothes were ragged, their speech laced with foreign words. But when they cut open the seams of their coats, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires spilled out, proof of the world they had seen. Venice listened, but few believed. The East they described sounded too perfect, too strange, too civilized. Yet every merchant who heard their tales began to dream of following the same road. What happens when the truth is so big that people can't believe it fits inside the world they know? War soon followed. Venice clashed with its rival Genoa, and Marco, now hardened by years at sea, took up arms and joined the Venetian fleet. During a naval battle, he was captured. In a Genoese prison cell, he met a writer named Rustichello da Pisa, who listened as the Venetian told his life story. Together they shaped Il Milione, The Travels of Marco Polo, a book that turned memory into myth. Marco wrote about deserts that sang, palaces roofed in gold, porcelain whiter than bone and harder than glass. He told of cities so vast that their populations alone defied belief, places where hundreds of thousands lived, worked, and traded within walls that never slept. Some called him liar, others visionary, but through his words, the East stepped onto Europe's page for the first time. While kings drew borders in blood, a prisoner redrew the map with ink. The book spread like wildfire, copied by monks, translated by merchants, carried in the saddlebags of pilgrims. Many dismissed it as fantasy. How could a city hold 1 million souls? How could paper replace gold? But the dream lodged itself in Europe's mind. Cartographers began to fill their maps with new names. Scholars even debated whether Marco had seen Eden itself. 2 centuries later, a Genoese navigator named Christopher Columbus would carry a worn copy of the Travels on his voyage west, searching not for new worlds, but for the old ones Marco had described. Can a single story change the direction of the earth? Marco Polo never claimed to be a hero. He was a merchant who took notes, a man whose courage was curiosity. Yet his journey did what armies could not. It stitched 2 halves of humanity together with stories, trade, and wonder. Through him, Europe learned that civilization existed beyond its walls, that invention and wisdom flowed east long before they drifted west. And in turn, Asia learned how powerful a single traveler's voice could be. He died in 1324 AD, in the same city where he had begun, Venice, when priests urged him to recant his lies. He answered,
I have not told half of what I saw.
"Truth, it seems, is always larger than the eye that beholds it." Today, ships still leave Venice, tracing digital routes across seas Marco once crossed by instinct. Airliners glide above the same deserts he walked for years. The world he revealed is smaller now, but our wonder remains the same size. He learned that discovery is not the act of arriving somewhere new, but of returning to where you started, changed from the Mongol courts to modern airports. His name still travels like a compass needle pointing east. Every dreamer who sets out toward the unknown walks in the footprints of that Venetian youth. Marco Polo crossed continents to understand the world. Centuries later, in a far-off island kingdom, another man would try to open his world to the same horizon. A warlord with one eye and a vision that saw beyond Japan itself. Next on Mini History, Date Masamune, the one-eyed dragon who reached out to the world.